Hello, g'day, and welcome, or welcome back, to episode 16 of Whether or Not. StellaQ here, and this time we're spending a little less time with our heads in the clouds and focusing on a more surface-level topic, from a heels-on-ground perspective. It is painfully clear, repeatedly, that no matter how much information and awareness one has tucked under their headband, there's never a one-size-fits-all solution for every crisis that happens to drop by without calling first. For example, does preparing for major flooding simulate preparations required for a wildfire? Will that same foresight serve to preserve life through a tornado or a grid blackout? And through all seasonal extremes? Sort of, kinda, mostly, somewhat, maybe. The simple answer is there's no simple answer. Even the questions are complicated. The reality cliché is that we can only hope for the best while being prepared for the worst, whatever form that may take. Prepping is a lifestyle for some. In fact, I've been there myself, with a crisis or two notched into my own belt. Survival will often come down to the nature of an individual. One's own cognitive resilience requires as much prepping as food, water, and medical supplies. You can prepare to be 100% autonomous, but that unforeseen broken arm or leg, it's going to throw a big fat spanner into your well-oiled gears. All of a sudden, your survival machine seizes, and you slip into the same vulnerability as the rest of the frenzied, frightened flocks. Your chances of getting through unscathed may unexpectedly be placed into the hands of a neighbour, or often a total stranger. Sometimes all you have is faith, whatever form that may take for you, spiritual or otherwise. Self-reliance has become a problematic societal tug-of-war as we get further sucked into an authoritarian vortex of external reliance upon governmental clowns, insurance predators, and not-for-profit vampires. Some who have proved time and again to be nothing more than fair-weather fiends, happy to shut up and take your money, and offering little more than a child's broken umbrella to get you through a hurricane. We need to be confident in self-reliance, yet realistic with our vulnerabilities, preferably without the ugly beauty of hindsight. We'd do well to learn from others' experiences and listen out for those unspoken impressions rather than just feed on the spoon-fed statements. Listen between the lines. We're very fortunate to have the opportunity today to do exactly that, to be privy to a first-hand personal recount from one brave lady who recently faced likely total loss from within the devastation of the California fires here in January 2025. Fires that were whipped up by extreme Santa Ana winds, multiple blazes of which are still raging as we record. Our friend, Monica Perez, is not only a well-respected podcaster with an extraordinarily level head, she's also a wife, a mother of 3, including a special needs son. She is many things, and she is now, also, a survivor of these hellfires that ravaged through her beloved neighbourhood, sweeping it into oblivion and leaving behind little more than a moonscape. Monica is also a loved and respected friend to many who were fortunate enough to find her show The Propaganda Report as we all floundered blindly through whatever the hell 2020 plus was, that atomic bomb of what the that exploded into our lives under the guise of keeping us safe just for 2 weeks till they flatten the curve. Insert air quotes and global eye roll here. Nothing much gets past Monica, and she and her colleague Brad Binkley were able to offer some grounding and even humour throughout the nonsensical big clown antics that we were all forced to endure, participants or otherwise. I'm honoured to be offering even just a sliver of the same in return in her own unsure times. The greatest teacher is experience, so please spend some time with us today as Monica recounts her own personal experience and shares her transitory thought processes under pressure. And as she drops several personal reality bombs, listen out for the unvoiced hints within the weeds, if you have ears to hear. Maybe take a few notes to ponder upon. This is an invitation to spend some time thinking about the unthinkable and making a few preliminary plans so that you are not caught napping at the wheel of life's unexpected turns. to retain as much power over your life, even when life itself is in jeopardy. Here is a first-hand report on the California fires as we ponder with Monica Perez. Was it weather or not? First, I'm going to introduce our local meteorological forensics expert, Mr. Jeff. Hello, Jeff. How are you going?
Hello. Doing great, Stella. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good. And we're very fortunate to have our friend, Monica Perez, with us to join us and give us her recount. Hello, Monica. So good to see you.
Hello. It's very nice to see you. Your avatars.
Yes. I am actually just a two-dimensional avatar. Just don't tell anyone.
I love it. It's a really fabulous avatar, and I love Jeff's too. I'm a sucker for. I like Spock. I like Data. I have dreams about those guys.
You're a bit of a Trekkie.
Totally.
Well, just before we get started, first of all, I'd just like to give a shout out to God for the fact that we still have you. We still have you and your family, and incredibly and quite miraculously, you still have your house.
Big snaps to all of that, for sure. I should actually tee up a picture of my beautiful house, my tiny little house, which is still gorgeous.
Sure,
and
you
there.
show us whatever you want to.
See what
And also a big shout out to your neighbour, because he had a lot to do with...
Oh my gosh, yeah, I just call him Chad.
Chad, big shout out to Chad, we love
Chad. Yeah, he's just the best. And I thought he'd be annoyed if I ever talked to him. He's a private guy, but he got wind of something and he was like, "Hey, that's so cool, you were talking about us." I was like,
oh,
right on. Right on. Yeah, he's the best.
Yeah, it's sort of like when your neighbours, it's pretty cool to know your neighbours, I think, in these sort of situations. And
yeah, and with him, he's just, he's such a great neighbor that I really hardly knew anything about him. But my son and husband went to a concert with him and they just enjoyed the music and didn't even know what he did for a living. My father always taught me, you never ask someone what they do for a living. But I knew it was something real. So I asked him about it just after the fire, and he said, "Yeah, well, I used to be a mechanic, and then I realized my parents were right. I should have gone to college. So now I'm an automotive engineer or whatever." But he's a guy, because of that, which we hardly have anymore, which I would say thanks to NAFTA. I remember Bill Clinton actually saying we'll have a completely service-oriented workforce. He can do stuff and he can understand things. So at any given time, he evacuated his vulnerables early, but he stayed, which is probably good advice. I should have done that. But he said, I have 4 escape routes. None of them are blocked. My car is facing forward. It's packed with the stuff. I'm just going to assess that situation. In the meanwhile, I'm going to put out all these fires in the trees and everything, starting from I'm sure around when we evacuated.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Okay, well, let's just have a look at where the situation is up to right now. Just bring up this. So this is the fire.ca.gov site. And so far, well, this is where you sort of basically go for the latest updates.
Yeah, there are 2 fires. And those are both. That looks accurate to me as far as both fires combined.
Right, okay. Well, it's saying here 274 wildfires. I guess... I don't know.
But you look at the structures destroyed in my very small town. I can show you a picture of it. Over 9,000 structures were destroyed, and in Palisades, I think it was 7,500. As a matter of fact, I have a picture of the actual. If you want to see,
sure. Bring up.
I would have to knock you out if you want to take your thing out, and then I'll show you. I was going to do this last, but you're right. We should start with the punchline. So that's my town, small town, and it's in LA County. It's in a huge city, but so those are all our houses next to each other, and the red means totally destroyed, right, and the black means fine, and mine is orange, which is partially destroyed, whatever. And but it's in there. It's in the red zone,
Right.
and it has a little. It's weird, like your experience, because, and I attribute it to my neighbor and like 9 other things, all of which are just thank you God, but because he or we or the firefighters or whatever stood ground right there. If you were to zoom in, which my husband will not permit me to do, on our actual house, you would see a wedge, almost like if you've ever seen, a blast zone or whatever, they'll like, if you watch Forensics Files or whatever, they'll like blast something and you can see the spray pattern. If there's something in the way, whatever's behind it doesn't get the spray. Mm-hmm. That's what, if you zoom in, that's what like my area looks like. So there's all these houses on fire, but where we were, the houses behind us did not burn. And I think I attribute that to Chad. and since then, my son's teacher, I talked to her. She had a lot of people there. I had a remediation sales rep walking my neighborhood. Both of them said the same thing. The people whose houses are still standing, every story they heard like that, they were there. They stayed. And in our case, we went back. Mm-hmm. Now, everybody who stayed did not save their house.
Yep.
So it's not that. But if you abandon your house, I think, well, they told you to, like, and it was scary. It looked like, let me show you. Mm-hmm. I'll show you I think
you're about to show us the first picture that you sent us.
Yeah, the first picture. So, yeah. So I think that was maybe 7 or 8 at night.
That's so scary looking. Yeah.
So that is the actual fire there. I don't know if you can see my cursor. That's the blazing fire in the hill, which is about a mile away. And we went to sleep after that. Like, we got in our pajamas and went, which is a mistake. Like, I don't care if you go to sleep, but don't get in your pajamas. Don't
just wear very nice pajamas.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to go. But the reason we didn't evacuate right away is because we had all these vulnerables, I call them. Like, we have these 3 bunnies, which are super annoying, don't have pets that can't walk on their own. We have this schizo dog we just adopted, and my son who has Down syndrome. So it was a complicated situation for us to just go to a hotel, which we were thinking of because the power was out. We were going to do it anyway. But so we had everything ready. We packed the car. I had the cages ready and everything. I was ready to go. But we live in a house that's 100 years old, and all our neighbors are like, yeah, it never gets down this far. And my husband, I wasn't the alpha on the scene. That's why I actually lost consciousness. But my husband was sleeping with one ear open. And about 3:30 in the morning, which was probably 6 hours after this, he just gets up and he says, "Oh, we got to go." And he said, there's burning embers raining down in our backyard. And we probably left around 15 minutes before our patio went up in flames.
That's odd, okay, because that's around about the time that I woke up and just felt like I needed to contact you, because I just woke up and just went, I wonder how Monica's doing at the moment.
Well, you're not the only one. Stuart, our mutual friend Stuart, sent me an email that day, before it happened. Yeah. He said, I had a dream that we were, it was an intricate thing. I'm not going to tell you everything, but he said that are you preparing for something? And, I was packing I was grabbing my first editions of Atlas Shrugged and a little bag of gold and all the things that I thought I should take with me on that day, that evening. And then when you, So we did ultimately evacuate, and then we ended up in a hotel, and around 7 in the morning, I saw this, and you, Stella, are texting me saying, don't panic. I'm like, well, that's my house on fire. You're like, you can't be sure. It's like, it's my house and it's on fire. But visuals can be deceiving. But what I didn't realize is over here were firefighters. So, and they were putting it out. And
see, I found it so amazing that you could even recognize that as your house. Oh, that's why I was saying, look, maybe it's not,
No, she had looked at the street sign. She just looked up. I can't show you that because, again, my husband's like, you can't show people our address. She showed me, she was at our cross street. And what she was saying is everything around me is burning. So all the other, whatever, 240 degrees around her is en fuego. Like she had I have 5 minutes of this video. It's just fire everywhere. And the only green place, and that's still true to this minute, like it's all just the moon, except for that little green spot, which is where she was, probably because that's where the firemen were. But she showed the street sign. I knew it was my house. So
wow.
I said, let's go, to my son. And I just wanted to see it. I didn't think there was anything to do, but there was.
Yep. Yeah. Well, luckily you did. Jeff?
Yeah, it was just like, there's like 10 things that are just miraculous, crazy, 10 different things. Like on the way out at 3:30 in the morning, I went back to get my glasses, but I didn't realize that my husband went back. He remembered that we had gotten a generator that day. By coincidence, we got a generator that day. Mm-hmm. And he knew that they were going to put the power out. So he went and got the gasoline as a gas generator and he poured it, but it didn't all fit. So next to the generator on the back porch was they call them gas cans, but they're made of plastic now. Had gasoline in it on our back porch, which is the thing that went up in flames, but he grabbed the gas can. So if he hadn't grabbed the gas can, it would have melted and just spread the gasoline all over. Like there's not a chance. So that was just like, there were 10 different things, but I didn't realize he ran back for something when I ran back. And it was nerve wracking though. You don't want to run back, but I knew I couldn't live without my glasses. So I had to go back. But yeah, that was super scary.
I can't imagine. Yeah, I mean, there's the things that must go through your head all at once, and then deciding to try to prioritize them into an order. It just must be mayhem.
Right, and it was in the dark because they had cut the power before the fire started, which is what we're probably going to want to talk about somewhat. So like my takeaways for some of that stuff is my house has never been as messy as it was that day because my kids were home for Christmas and there's just a lot of partying and it wasn't on top of things. Could not find anything. I hadn't folded my laundry. I had nothing. So I had literally packed a suitcase, and I always make fun of the Titanic. Like, you set lifeboats out half full. Like, what are you, stupid? I opened my suitcase when I got to the hotel and I'm like, a Pink Floyd t-shirt and a pair of flip-flops? Really? Like, I didn't bring anything. That's good enough. Is that what you said? It was not bad choices, but I could have just taken all the unfolded laundry and put it in. The suitcase was empty. It was just stupid, but I couldn't see anything. And I was packing by with a candle, and like, you don't want to be in your closet with a candle and a handful of clothes. So I just said, I'm grabbing like that little bag of gold and the living things. And I was trying to get the bunnies in the cage. And I was like, if I don't get them in the cage, they are dying. Like, and they're squirrely, they're bunnies. So I just had to like keep my head in the dark, put the candle on the thing and just like grab them one by one and put them in the little portable cage. So there were some things that you just had to keep your head, and you didn't have time for anything more than just like the critical path items. And then that was that. So I don't have a lot of that. I think I had one picture of us evacuating. I can't find it. But do you want me to keep just narrating that little part of the story, and then we can talk about causes? Okay, sure.
We'll hear about it.
So after I saw my house on fire, and you said, "Oh, it just looks like your house," I was like, "Looks like my house, and it's on my street." But okay, and those are my trees for sure. So I got in the car, and it's 100% because I think it's because you told me to have hope, which I had none. I started saying the rosary, which I hadn't even had hope enough. So then my husband called and said, the neighbor called and said the house is still there. He said he doesn't know what's on the other side of our house, but on his side, he can see our house standing. So then we were just crying with relief because his side of the house is where the bedrooms are and all our stuff and everything. Yep. So my son and I went back in, and this is us going up there and to see if it was there or not.
So you were with your son. Oh, wow. Okay.
Right here.
Wow.
We're just trying to get up there. Oh, it's fucking hot. We're trying to get up there to... Right here. So there wasn't much. And then he says, the freaking GPS. I used the GPS because roads were closed, and Google was really on it. Like, it was funny when they started closing roads, like Google would help you like get around the roadblocks.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, not that minute. That minute. Actually, the reason I was using GPS is that we were in downtown LA. We got as far, we had to get a hotel at the last minute, and we wanted to get out of the smoke, and they had like a big enough, we needed a couple of rooms. So I really didn't know. You really should know. A friend of mine said that you should never rely on GPS for your escape routes. You know, you should always know how to get out.
Well,
but we were getting back in from a place I just didn't know the best way to go. So, but yeah, so we went back in there, and to find our neighbors putting out the embers. And actually at that point, when I was in the car with my son, my husband called and said, the neighbor said, look, they're trying to keep people from going, but they don't have the manpower. So just go. Don't look at anybody. Don't slow down. Just go. So we were right when I pulled that video down, we were just getting to the street, and people were making U-turns because the electrical lines were all down. And we didn't realize, we forgot that they had cut the power. So none of that was hot. But my son is, he's 19. He does not a lot of experience with that. It's like, what should I do? And I said, just avoid the edges of those wires. Like the rubber, you can go over the rubber. So like when they're flat, just go over them. So, and the neighbor told my husband, like, just go straight through, pop into the driveway, but it's like shit's on fire. So like in the back of the driveway, make your little K-turn, make sure you can get out quickly. And he said, don't let anybody see you. So we did not realize that we were like entering a scene. And what they were doing, they said, do you have any pitchers or anything, water pitchers? And they were taking the water from the pool and putting out the fires in the trees, because I was laughing because the hoses were all melted. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so funny. But the faucets were dry. There was no water. So there was no water at all. Luckily, my neighbor had a pool. And we started putting it out, and eventually like some buckets arose, but I'll show you the next one.
Yep. Just before you do, I was just going to say on that note about the water being dry, etc.
Yeah.
I saw a little bit of information about that, because I'm thinking, why would there be no water? And what happens in fires is, people's houses are burning, their plumbing, etc., and their hoses and everything burn, and to the point where the infrastructure within their houses and their plumbing is gone, and so therefore the water there's no way of shutting it off. So unless people think, which forgiven for not, but unless people think in an emergency to go and shut off their mains before they go, you've got thousands of houses with water just pouring out, not shut off. So therefore the pressure's way down.
The pressure was down. I hadn't heard that. I could totally verify, and I think even have a video to this effect, which would blow your mind if would have to take a minute for me to retrieve it. But, I think I might have put it down there. No. The gas for sure. So the gas kept burning after the house was burned. Every house had a flame in the middle because of the gas. I didn't see that with the water. They were saying that our reservoirs ran dry, but I also know that we have a backup, or I read that we have a backup system. So they're going to blame our little town for not having big enough reservoirs. However, I believe we had a backup system, which you would. Someone else told me, friend of mine said he wouldn't have lied. Like, he definitely said that he heard on NPR the firemen calls back and forth and saying, send us those trucks, the water trucks, because that is the only thing they were using when I got there. And he said that they called them off. Now that could have been because the other fire was first. So our firefighters, Pasadena firefighters, were in the Palisades. That I was watching on the news as my house was burning. Another news station was showing our fire trucks on the other side of the city. So I don't know, I couldn't get to the bottom of that.
I did see some report about a reservoir that is normally full, was not full because it had been undergoing some maintenance, and the maintenance took too long.
I saw that.
And
that
wasn't done on time, so it was still empty.
Yeah, this is another mystery. So that was at the Palisades. So that was the other reservoir. And that means that both places ran out of water, which is super suspicious. And then I also heard, I haven't been like doing all this research because it's kind of disturbing for me, but people tell me what they're hearing. And so Newsom was saying this is all a lie about there being no water, but I know for a fact there was no water. I mean, I know for a fact there was no water on my end of town. And the Palisades, if they did run out of water, I don't know. I saw that reservoir being empty, but that picture might have, you know how it is. I don't know for sure that's the right picture. Could be.
Okay, Jeff, was there something that you wanted to add there?
Not really. I don't think so.
Okay.
Other than I can relate to the fires. I had my house burned down 7 years ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So I'm very, I'm very California.
Wow.
I put the sprinklers in my house every year. I cut all my firewood on my property. I have 5 acres, and I make biochar out of the stuff.
Had you not been doing that before?
No, you do it every year. I mean, you live it. You know how it is every year.
I know, but then it's still burned down though.
Yeah. Well, we were out of town. We were out of state, and it burned down while we were here, or while we were gone.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not encouraging people to stay in a dangerous situation. I definitely wouldn't stay inside the building, but you can use your head a little bit if you're on the scene, and it does make a difference in my observation. So let's show you how it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So that's my house. And that's my son in the white t-shirt. Like, those guys were already fighting. That's the wind. And it was a blue sky day. That's smoke that you're seeing. That was a blue sky day. So at that point, that fire was too high for us to get to. So I will say, this is the second time firemen saved our house.
It's the neighbor's house.
It helps that you have the right kind of roof there.
Absolutely. That made the big difference.
And walls.
That house. Check out the back.
I don't
And
think this
stucco.
is the one I wanted. I think
Yeah, the stucco and organic stuff. I mean, that's the way to go. I did see a couple of bits of footage of houses that survived when their neighbours didn't. And it was all about design. We can talk about that a little bit later, but it's all about the design and just thinking things through. I mean, it's a good time for people to get familiar with that now because there's going to be a lot of rebuilding. Hopefully people will rebuild in a better fashion in the sense of using
Build Back
materials.
Better. I know it sounds so
I'm trying
lame.
not to say Build Back Better. But it can be done. So it's just a matter of planning well. And, I mean, you can even surround your place with fire retardant plants. You can have a lot of brick walls, cement walls and things which can work as fire breaks. There's lots that you can do, like have no eaves, have recessed walls.
Right. We're going to remediate the eaves. Our eaves are a problem, and we're going
In
to...
case you're wondering what happened.
Oh, shoot. Oh, this well, you can see.
Gas.
My husband made fun of me. I'm not going to make you listen to the noise because it was so eerie. So we went back that night because we still were worried about the embers. And every house, so every single house was burned to the ground. But inside the houses, the gas lines, we turned our gas line off because we went back. But every those are all gas lines flaring, which actually, to be honest, gas flaring is not the worst thing that can happen. It's when it's not flaring that it's filling with gas. Yeah. And then if it catches an ember, and we heard a lot of explosions, a lot. And I don't know if they were propane tanks. Maybe Jeff knows from his experience.
I know that they have a relief to where that my propane tank was going. It would sporadically flare, according to my neighbor. He saw it happening.
Oh,
so
wow.
It was
well,
not
then
a
it didn't
continuous
explode.
thing.
Yeah.
It scorched the trees next to my house, and I kept them for reminder what it does. So those trees are still alive.
Oh, really? I was
Yeah,
wondering
I mean,
if the trees would make it.
It lost a lot of bark, but they're still alive. They are live oaks. So
The live oaks. See, so a lot of people were making fun of me. I don't know if you can tell that picture. There's 24 hours apart exactly. 12 noon on Tuesday.
Oh, right.
You can hardly tell. Let me see if I've got a better
Doesn't
one.
even look at the same place.
Right. And
Wow.
so let's see.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to remember things like turning off the mains and turning off the water and stuff. Really, I mean, living in
Yeah,
a
that's better.
high risk area, you'd think that they would be sort of doing, you know, community
know.
announcements, etc. Like, don't forget, we're coming up to. I mean, it wasn't really fire season, was it? But it sounds like to me like California is sort of at high risk most of the time because it's so dry.
Well, the Santa Ana winds are a super huge fire risk. So you can see this was Tuesday, blue sky. It was still blue sky on Wednesday. My chaise lounges had blown over from the wind. It was so windy, and they're metal. So I was surprised at that. I took a picture of like the new dog, whatever, being surveying the damage, being a dog. And then this is, you can see it's the same, almost the exact same spot. That's where he was standing, because you can see the chaise lounges over here.
Yep.
And like the brush is gone, that there's a house there that's just rubble, and it was still a blue sky day, but look, it just, anyway.
Yep. I remember that from the fires in 2019 and 20 when in Sydney or Australia, basically, because I was on the edge of a national park, so we were, very nervous. It didn't actually come to our area, but after that happened, I heavily persuaded my partner to assist in let's purchase a generator, and we also bought some metal hoses with metal things on the end. Yeah, we never got to use them, thank goodness, but they were there, and I just think maybe that's something that people can think about as well, because rubber hoses aren't much good in that sort of situation.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get...
And some good gloves, because the metal hose will get hot.
Oh, that's a good point. I'm definitely going to get a hose and an we're building a pool. We're going to get an attachment for the pool. Mm-hmm. And so I've got plans on how to deal with that. I thought there was something we were talking about that made me think about the trees. So I'm getting into arguments of people online who tell me it's like mystifying. It's got to be like an unexplained phenomenon that the trees were still standing. But from the way I was looking at it, most of the trees that remained standing with leaves intact were the live oaks. And a lot of the palms, all the dead leaves had been blown off from the day before. So what was left after the insane Santa Ana winds were not super flammable. So when the embers went up, you'd have to have a certain kind of tree to catch it. Whereas anybody's roof other than a tile roof would catch, it was like a bowl or a big plate, and embers. So the houses would go on fire and the trees sometimes were spared. But then the next day, so my trees looked fine, but they're all dying now because of the heat. There was just too much heat. Maybe they'll come back. I think they'll come back. I think it's the leaves that are dying.
It's always the embers that are the problem, isn't it? Because I mean, they can go miles ahead of a fire and start a whole new fire.
Yes.
And people sort of say, "Oh, how come this was skipped and this survived and that house isn't?" It's like, well, okay, there are some actual natural explanations for those things, but
and that's when you have the chance to put it out. So we extinguish.
If you can get ahead of that, if you can stay on the embers, then you've got a pretty good chance.
You want to hear a couple suggestions? What I've done at my place?
Yeah.
So I have sloped areas and everything's brown, of course. So as soon as we hear a spotter plane, and that sound, you go out and you turn on your perimeter sprinklers first to pre-soak the area. And then if you ever get the evacuation order, if you get the evacuation order, then you turn those off after they've been running for a half hour and pre-soak the whole area, all sides of your house. Then you go and flip your timers over, flip your valves over to the roofs, and then you leave.
I did.
On your roof
I said that to my husband. I said, should we run the sprinklers? We thought, and we're just like, it's never going to come down this far. We totally should run the sprinklers. They're all built into the ground. We don't have ones for the roof, but we could get a one for the roof. We'll write stuff down.
That's interesting because when you've said that a couple of times, it's never going to come down this far. And that's exactly what happened with the Lismore floods here in 2022. It's almost exactly 3 years, actually, since they happened. And everyone's going, it's not going to go up that high. And sure enough, it went up like the highest flood ever. And people even on the tops of their roofs were almost drowning. So it's like, it was insane.
Yeah, so one of the big problems, for me is why? So why now? And I mean, there are definitely climatic differences. Like there's a lot of air pollution now than there was before. But there's a lot of other stuff too, such as I mean, these are just things I've heard. Like you'd have to make a lifetime study to like dig and make verify all of this. But some of the things that I've heard is that the environmental, oh shoot,
The brush clearing crews.
sorry, the environmental laws have kept the like policy from addressing extra water supplies or watering things or clearing brush. And then there's, you know what I mean? Like they can't do brush fire, like controlled burn. There's too much political resistance to that. It's just a lot of stuff like that I think may be contributing. I think there's like different policies for the firefighters that they are not willing to risk any lives, which I can understand it. But so when we evacuated at 3:30 in the morning, we saw along, the bottom of the hill, far from the fires, 4 big giant engines, fire engines. And we were like unhappy because we thought, why aren't they up there? But the winds were insane. Like the winds would just knock you off your feet. So I don't know if they could have done anything about that. But I just, I do wonder why now, what could be contributing to why now? And I think that's why people think it's intentional. And I think in a way it is intentional, but more in a Rahm Emanuel kind of way. Don't let the crisis go to waste, and they're ready. So like the way obituaries, they have celebrity obituaries ready for anybody who's going to die. I think they have a plan. Like any time there's a big fire, we don't really care that much if it burns. We're going to go in and build cookie cutter apartment buildings, whatever. Like we're ready. We're ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there is a lot to take into account too that with causations. I mean, there's constant urban sprawl, so that is contributing because it is changing the landscape. There's a lot of tree removal. There's also a lot of tree replacement, but with the wrong kinds of trees. I mean, I don't think it was really terribly a contributing factor from what I hear, but decades ago there was a lot of Australian eucalypts planted all around the California area.
That's north, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right, okay. But I mean, still, that's dumb because those things are like, they're fuel to a fire.
Yeah.
That's why ours were so fierce as well, because we're predominantly eucalypts. So that was a bit of a dumb thing to do. And, they are fully mature now and ready to be, have fire so that they can then regenerate because that's
oh my
what
gosh.
happens.
Well, we have dumb trees like those big Italian cypresses are super attractive to fire, which is why we struggled with them. But they're like 70 years old, so I can't say that was a new phenomenon. But it's it's not hundreds of years. They weren't there for hundreds of years like some of those evergreens that are as high as you can see, of a different nature, which are like way more water retentive. So a lot of these really towering, spectacular evergreens that you don't see anywhere else, they are intact totally. And you've got to figure they've been through fire before, but they don't go up.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of the citrus. So we also water a lot of the trees because a lot of them are fruit trees.
Right, so they require a lot of water. Yes, yeah.
Monica, were you aware that it rained that morning? Just on the mountains north of you?
Which mountains?
San Bernardino's, all the mountains to the north. It rained as the fire was starting.
I wouldn't know about that. It definitely didn't rain in Eaton Canyon, for sure
Right.
not. Yeah, but yeah.
At the top of the hills, though, it was wet. I don't know how much. I didn't get amounts, but I saw on the radar and the cloud bands as I was researching this. It rained up there, so that's kind of a good thing. Even if it was only a quarter inch, it was better than zero.
Well, I'm not great with geography, so I think San Bernardino is kind of far from where we are. Like, I think it would take me an hour to drive there, maybe.
But as far as the embers fly, not so much.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So yeah, if only it could have rained, if only, I mean, I don't know what they could have done to make it rain without any clouds
Yeah.
at all. I mean, if there were clouds, they could make it rain. I'm not sure they would, but
Yeah, where's the damn cloud seeders when you need them?
exactly.
Just on the subject of sort of the timeline, I suppose, can I just add something to the stage there without mucking you up?
Sure. Me, yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
There we
Mhm.
go. All right. In fact, I'm going to go into reader view here because we'll get rid of all those stupid ads. All right.
There you
So
go.
there was talk there about January 1st, New Year's
Yeah.
Eve was
Mhm.
possibly, because everyone's focusing on January the 7th.
All right. That's
But-
Tuesday. Right.
But you go back here, and there was actually a fire that was started basically due to fireworks.
Yeah.
New Year's Eve, in a wooded kind of area. There was a fire that burned, and it burned 8 acres. And
Wow.
it was
Wow, that's a lot.
supposedly-
Yeah.
It was. Supposedly it was brought under control and put out. But I know from my own experience when I was in Tasmania, we had a fire. And it was like all the bracken fern. I don't know if you guys have bracken fern, but it's like a ground fern and it's just everywhere. You pull it out basically if you don't want, but it has a very intricate root system, very
Right.
underneath. So if they are burning, because that's what happened to us. The dudes came, they put out the fire, and then a couple of days later it sparked up again because the root system was on fire and we had
Yeah.
a wind. So this is what happens. So it's possible that this was actually started from January the 1st.
That
And it
did
was,
happen. Yeah. In my house when I went, what was still smoldering in my backyard, one of the orange trees did not go on fire, but I have a picture somewhere. The roots did. So like at the base of the tree, you see all the smoldering. And when we came up, the only fire damage to my house is where those orange tree roots are up against. And I remember a guy, I said, "Oh, look, it's smoldering." And one of those guys who was helping with the tree said, where? And he ran and put it out, but you had to keep the roots, you have to keep putting out. So if you know there's roots on fire, that's one thing. Like I kept going back to put out the roots, and it looks like ash, but sometimes it's still smoldering. And because when you put the water on it, it starts to smoke, and then you're like, that one's going to keep burning.
Yeah, right. I mean,
And
'cause
whole
it could be
entire trunks came, things that you didn't even know there was an old tree trunk in the ground, and all of a sudden there's a hole because it just burned and burned and burned.
yeah, I
Underground.
mean, you can't see what's going on. So you're not really going to think of it. It's not going to be in the forefront of your mind to, look for things like that.
And I don't think you would know really. Like I think those underneath, because it's like covered in ash, so you're not really seeing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We only knew when you'd pour water on it, like you would only know it was out because smoke wouldn't come back up.
Yep. So I believe there is a little bit of rain forecast for this weekend, but that, I don't know if I'd rely on that too much. That actually presents a few problems in itself because, as they're saying, not that they're expecting a lot, but it could present things like toxic ash runoff, mudslides. The fire retardant will be brought down as well. I mean, that stuff's toxic, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I know there has been some changes through the years to make it a little less toxic, but it's still toxic. It's just like all the stuff, you said that you'd been breathing in a lot of toxic stuff. It's
Oh
like,
my
well,
gosh. Yeah.
The irony is a lot of that is fire retardant.
Oh my
that's
gosh.
put
Yeah.
into
Asbestos.
furnaces.
Yeah. Asbestos is, we don't have asbestos anymore, but yeah, I don't buy into like there are trillions of invisible, things that are trying to kill me all the time everywhere. Don't touch that surface. There's like, a virus on there or a toxic chemical or whatever.
Yeah.
So of course I just go in, and my son kept saying like, you got to wear a mask in this smoke. And I was like, fuck it. Oh my gosh. I was sick for days. And then when I went back into the house like a week later, so then I got better. I went back into the house a week later, and the neighbor comes over. It's like, get the fuck out of the house. Like, it's full of toxins. I'm like, yeah, you're an alarmist. And then, like, the next day I was sick, like, exactly the same way. So it wasn't smoke inhalation. It was really what was in the smoke. That was for sure. I am worried about the water because their plan is to go in and scoop out a bunch of soil from all the houses around me are gone. So they want to get rid of those toxins, but the rain will push them further down, which I don't like. And a little worried about the mudslide thing. And I was telling Jeff before that all over the sky and over my house, and my friend too, are just chemtrails today, and they haven't been for weeks. I've seen no chemtrails, and the two of us are like, come on, like, Stella talks a good game, but like these things are chemtrails, and they're gonna like flatten us with rain tomorrow. But the thought occurred to me, and I ran up by Jeff. The thought occurred to me is it has been dry as a bone. The weather is coming, so maybe there's just water in the air now. And that's why it's adhering to the seeds that are, being emitted by the planes. I don't know.
There would be a lot of particles in the air. What have you got to say about that, Jeff?
The chemtrails part?
Wondering why they would be appearing right now today. And we all feel like it's a predictor of bad weather, but I'm thinking maybe not because they're sending the weather, but because that it's easier for the chemtrails to form if the air has more moisture in it.
You got plenty of cloud seeds from all the air traffic anyway, but you look out in the Pacific Ocean, there's clouds out there. All you need is lift. You need a front and you need moisture, and it's already up there. So you can watch on satellite, watch it coming in, and then at the leading edge of the cloud band, which is the white clouds called cirrus or cirrostratus. The edge of a cloud is not cloud, right? The cloud is cloud. So at some point, the temperature dew point differential, which is dew point is a measure of humidity. At some point, when it gets about 5 degrees, the cloud starts to form. If it's 6 degrees, you don't have cloud. If you hit 5, 4, the difference between the temperature and the dew point, now you have cloud forming. And if you have a jet flying near the combustion of the kerosene provides extra water vapor that ups the dew point. Now you get down below 5, and all of a sudden you got a linear trail of cloud.
Yeah, because we had no trails at all for this whole time. It's been 2 weeks, and now all of a sudden they've emerged. But it also looks like they're not happening just at 34,000 feet. Is that, or wherever? Like, do they happen at different altitudes? I can't remember. I've heard you guys talk about it, but I just can't remember.
You have to have about minus 35 degrees Celsius or colder.
Okay.
And you have to look at a chart called the Appleton chart or Mick West's Contrail persistence calculator. You plug in a couple numbers, and it's almost a guarantee at minus 40, and definitely colder than that. No matter the moisture, if you have minus 50 degrees, it doesn't matter what amount of moisture you have, you're going to see a trail, but it might dissipate quickly.
So to answer your question, it will vary because it depends on altitude versus dew point. So it will be wherever that is,
right,
for the right conditions that you'll see a trail there.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just wondering about that because it's very easy to think, man, like they're doing this on purpose. It looks very purposeful, but it could also be just because they know the weather's coming in. They're telling you that, and it is coming. But there were two other things that I have pictures of. Like, one is the destruction, and the other thing I wanted to talk about is like the cause and like how my thoughts evolved about what would have caused this fire. And if you want to talk about either of those things.
Yeah. Is this where I would put that picture of your ex post up? Would that help, or is it different?
Which was the X post again?
When you were talking about.
The electric girl. So let me just show you the destruction first, and then it's just and then let's get into that conversation. Let me see. So what happened is around noon, I think it was, we heard. So when you hear a house go down, it's an explosion. But when we hear it go up, I think from what I recall, it was like a whoosh. And we heard it on our street, like a couple of houses down, and that freaked us out because we'd been working all day to keep those trees down. But if it was jumping from house to house, it would really be lost. And we went, and there was a house on fire, and there was a house real close to it. And I told my son to go run and get a firefighter. And by the time he got back, the next house had gone up. And then the firefighter saved the following house, and that saved our houses. But it made me sad because like in 30 seconds, I could see somebody was like so close to, not being the last house up. So that one really still makes me want to cry. But so then let's see, I don't know which one this is. Yeah, this is just typical, like every single house. And like it used to be, you couldn't see those mountains really because the houses went all the way up, but they were all gone. And I mean, I'm not going to like go through a whole bunch of pictures, but I do have like one, let me see. No.
The view you have that you'd rather not have.
Yes, now I have this like great view, but this was one thing that was like we thought we wouldn't have power for a long time and have to replace all the poles and but they worked round the clock, gas, power, water, round the clock, and everything was up and running in 2 weeks, which is just shocking.
That's astounding. That is astounding.
We thought it would be months. I mean, one estimate was like a year. And because these poles are all replaced already. Can you believe it? And I feel like they were today. They closed my street for the first time. I think because they were working really hard for Trump. And I'm like, he wants to see this. He doesn't want to see it fixed. Like he wants to see the like cool, destructive stuff. But here's one thing that like was I didn't expect this. So I went in the backyard to my neighbor had chickens who survived, and I went in the backyard and there was the squirrel there. I felt so bad for him. He's no tail, no fur, and he had a little food, found some food. I didn't want to disturb him by getting too close, but then I realized like how destructive it was to all those little critters. It was very sad.
Yeah,
so
very sad fallout.
So let's talk about the causes, or whatever you want.
Oh, I was just going to make a comment too about when you were talking about putting a mask on and stuff. I saw one of the advisory things is people stay inside, but if you've got to go outside, put your N95 mask on because that'll keep out particles. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. Hang on just one sec. Let's back up, buddy.
Yeah.
Because if those masks were so effective against a virus, shouldn't it be the case that everyone could just put an N95 mask on and go out and frolic, Like, hello?
But it's not a virus. Like, this is
bigger particles than
that's
a virus.
why,
if a virus exist, which, if you're on that field, whatever, let's not go there. But, the theory is it can keep out a virus, so therefore it can keep out, ash particles and things in comparison.
And the toxins are super tiny particles. So the only mask I would even think is like those big giant respirator masks. Yeah, I don't know if they work. I mean, I could experiment on myself personally and go in and see if it, if I'm sick the next time. I mean, I get sick every time I go in there. It's not like sick like I'm gonna die, just sick like I sound a little congested, right? That's not an ill. And then actually started thinking that's the National Guard keeping us out. But I started thinking that we all got it at the same time. It sounded like we all had a cold. So you would think it would be like contagion, but cold might be just people being exposed to the same environmental matter.
Yeah, because you can't see the particles in the air. So who knows what's there when, colds break out in communities, etc.
Right. So, okay. So here's the thing about the cause. We all witnessed all the electricity for as far as the eye could see out at 3:39. I have a text from my husband at 3:39. They cut the power. The fire started, I think, like 6:15. And this guy is not denying that, like, he's not saying, but I did cut the power. He's saying I didn't need to cut the power. So I knew there was something wrong with that story. And so I asked my neighbor, the Chad, I said, like, is there a difference between our power and the power up in those hills? And he said, yeah, those are high tension lines. They're like highways. They go over the mountain from the generators to like relay stations. Mm-hmm. So they can cut the residential power and not cut that power. And I said, well, but those, so then it's like, okay, even my normie husband thought it can't possibly be an electric fire. It has to be something else. Like it has to be something else. And that firefighters were saying it was arson and whatever. And if you look, we could see the thing, we could watch the thing. And when we were there in person, you could see the power lines illuminated by the fire underneath it, which is where the fire started, but the power lines were intact. So it's not like they broke and started a thing. So then over time, I started to piece it together, which is, I think that what was happening, So you can see this was a famous TikTok video. So can you see how that's a power line? Those are power lines here. You really can't see it, but that's the thing. That's the tower. And I still thought, well, the power lines are intact. How could it possibly happen? And we were still thinking that it was it had to have been something else. It can't have been that. Here's another picture of that. See, the power lines are still intact.
Yep.
And then
it was probably a little bit early for the whole, the news to be getting around of speculation of, it could have been this, could have been that. I mean, that was happening within a day or a couple of days.
You could, and we were seeing it like that, totally consistent with what we were seeing. But what I had not realized, I believe this is the actual setup, because I later drove by it. It's not even charred. It's really more, this may be an after picture. It's still kind of dusty brown. But when I drove by, I was like, oh yeah, it might have happened, because what somebody told me is that there were actually two next to each other, which you couldn't see. And as they were swaying, those wires were getting close enough together to arc.
Yeah, right. Okay.
And so they didn't have to break. They just arced. And then once they arced, like, there was just so much. So at this point, I consider that a real possibility. But when we were just absolutely not buying the electrical thing at all because the electricity was off, I was like overwhelmed with like anger and frustration, and just like, this is an awful world that somebody would do this on purpose. Like, the powers that be, the people we give our money to, the people who are supposed to stop this are actually starting these fires, like, because it's very remote. It would be kind of hard. I mean, you could access it. You could access it if you wanted to, like, blow something up at the bottom of those things. But I did feel like it was very demoralizing. And now that I feel like there is some explanation for it, somehow it makes me feel better. Although I feel like there are a ton of things that contributed to this being, dereliction of duty at the highest level, for sure, I think.
Well, yeah, and there's also talk about the whole DEI business getting in the way of the things that needed to be done for some of the fire services, etc.
I think
there's a lot of contributing factors, really, by the sounds of it.
I think the DEI thing is widely used right now as like a beard. Because I used to say this thing called the incompetence canard. I have a glossary, and it's this idea that government is incompetent. So our FAA, airlines, whatever commission, there have been no, other than a couple of false flags, I think, no U.S. run commercial jet has had a fatal accident in probably 15 years. And I can tell you the things that you're going to say are an exception. I can explain, but it doesn't matter. For the most part, they're totally competent. They're not incompetent. So if you want to say that they're incompetent, like Boeing or whatever, it's just not believable. Boeing has like triple redundancies. It's just not believable. So they have to blame it on something.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's what they're blaming on. But I mean, pretty sure a lesbian saved my house. There was no DEI failure there. She saved my house. She came back later to get credit for it, and she did save my house. I was like, been there for 30 years. She knew what she was doing, and I didn't have a sense of incompetence there. I did have a sense of policy, but I don't think that policy comes down from the chief from day to day. It's bigger than that, I think.
I don't think the incompetence probably was at ground level there, but probably more further up, is probably,
I don't think it's incompetence. No, right. I think it's intentional. I think they know, the people who make these decisions have zero tolerance for some things, like maybe political pushback, I don't know, but high tolerance for destroying 9,000 homes that don't have mortgages on them. I think that I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
It's multifaceted, isn't it? Jeff, is there something that you wanted to say there? Or not? Okay.
There he is.
Yeah, Jeff?
No, I don't really have anything to add to that. Sorry.
Oh, okay. That's all right. I saw you unmute your mic. I thought you might have had something. Yeah, look, there's a lot of, well, I sort of, scapegoats. I named them Judas goats. That's sort of more the thing that I use because it is multifaceted. I mean, there's a lot of, as you said before, never let a good crisis go to waste. It's almost like they know something's going to happen eventually, and then they're kind of ready to pounce. Let's talk about actually the aftermath of the what you experienced with the service people. Here's a question: did you see FEMA anywhere? Was there any FEMA-isms going on?
I see FEMA around. Somebody said, like, sign up for FEMA relief. You'll get $800 for some kind of scam. I avoid it. Like, I'll avoid it at all costs. There's a lot of, like, volunteers. They're just dying to give you water and, things like that. But it's like a blood drive on 9/11. Like, nobody's up there because there are no houses left. So you don't have to get people water and stuff because they're hardly even there. And so FEMA, I don't. Okay. Any of that stuff that popped up also was just too late to really help you. The days that you needed help was when you were trying to get back in there to get your guinea pig out or whatever. And they weren't letting you. So like for us, we climbed over fences, like we figured out how to get in. And then when the National Guard showed up, that was more intimidating. And I decided, like, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Fair enough. Well, I mean, these service people have copped a lot of flack too. So
it's
a little bit unfair.
It's been amazing. So it started with, they really hyped up the idea of looting, and maybe
they did, didn't they?
I just don't know how much of that was the real reason. So at first there were cops keeping us out. Then there were sheriffs keeping us out. And I wasn't scared of either of them. They were totally nice. The National Guard, it was very clear all those people were given strict orders to be super nice to us, to not give us a hard time. They weren't going to let you in if you weren't. For a while there, absolutely nobody was allowed in. But when they were opening it up a little bit, I lost my driver's license, like physically somewhere, and they just let me use a piece of mail to get in. There were checkpoints everywhere. And I mean, it makes you feel like, my husband said, well, if we can't sleep there because it's toxic, but at least there's 2 motorcycle cops in our driveway. Like, nobody's going to steal our stuff, because we were like one of the few houses left. And you feel, he's like, wow, that's great. And I'm thinking, it's good, but you're going to love it when they come, you're going to not worry about it when they come with some other excuse. Like, I'm not, like, building up goodwill, hearts and minds is very powerful. For, and this is like a perfect opportunity because they really want to help you, and it's a legitimate function and all of that. But the private companies, the water company, the gas company, the electric company, I mean, they worked around the clock. I mean, I'm blown away. With the level of competence that was brought then, it's just almost impossible. For the insurance company, for us, it's like impossible to believe that if they had wanted to use that if they had the desire to have prevented that fire, I feel like they absolutely could have. And the governments of this country in combination take 50% basically of our productivity. Like, total tax bill is like 50% of GDP almost, maybe 40%. But how many functions do they have? Like, they take on the air traffic, and they're really perfect at it. And then, if this is such a legitimate basic function of government, it costs the insurance companies $50 billion. Why didn't they take $5 million and clear the brush or put a, fire break in? These are things that were discovered 100 years ago. Jeff, do you have any opinion on that? When you were in your fire zone, did you go back and look and think, if they had only done this, it was so obvious, like, not hindsight is 2020, but like, I can see that this was a protocol at one point, it was common sense, and now for some reason they didn't do it.
Yeah, it's nonsense to not do it. I mean, we know exactly what it takes to, you have to have the kindling to start a tree on fire, that's for sure. You don't get embers unless you have small stuff to start the tree, to start the leaves flying. It's like, get rid of the brush. And if it's true that they stop the programs, that's on them.
That's right. I mean, the stat I saw is they were supposed to do, I think, 5,000 acres of brush removal over whatever since this was implemented several years ago, and they got like 170 acres done. Like they just weren't doing it. And people from around, like Anthony Raimondo, who is from LA, a frequent guest of mine, and other people have said back in the day, like the Boy Scouts would do it. Like they would do it. People would do it, and we would do it. We would have done it, and the insurance company could have done it. The insurance company came around and said, replace your roof tiles. We've been droning you. And in my neighborhood, the two people who replaced their roof tiles, one of them had to replace their roof. Their houses are still standing because the fresh roof tiles have more of that stuff on it, that fire resistant stuff.
Right, okay.
But I just feel like if the insurance companies had said, like, as a community, you can do this, or if they had combined with each other and said, hey, let's each pitch in, however many millions we have of exposure, a proportional amount. There's like 3 insurance companies, say everybody put in $3, $4, $5 million, and just get there's a lot of bums up there. They could just get them to do it. I mean, they live there anyway. They live in those hills. They start fires in those hills. And I just don't understand it. So that's where I think the kind of intention comes from, like what my producer calls weaponized negligence.
Yeah, good way to put it, actually. That sort of job of controlled burns, etc., really, ironically, should really be in the hands of the Indigenous, because although modern Indigenous, maybe they don't have the traditional know-how anymore. It's sort of a kind of dying out, isn't it? But there is programs here in Australia for Indigenous to do that, but it just gets so politicized. And then you've got, people going, oh, no, we don't want that. We were all asthmatics and blah, blah. So it's a tough one to find, balance and timing and, not confidence, but, to be sure that those sort of controlled burns don't get out of control, which has happened many times.
Yeah, and it does. And that has been in the paper lately. But they'll also, not in that particular instance, but let's just say there's like an owl or something they want to protect. So there'll be political resistance against that. And the smelt is actually contributes to the water problem. But I feel like it's at that point where they are, whether it's intentional or not, but that is, I don't know if I would, is it negligence? Is it incompetence? Is it sinister? Is it like, yeah, we know this is what it takes to burn, and that stuff's going to burn, and that's okay because we just want to build condos there anyway, like at a super high level, like at the level, because everybody's known this. And this is what my friend said. He heard the thing called off. This has happened to me. It's probably happened to other people, where you're pursuing something, and then the guy says to you, the authority that you're dealing with who really wants to help you says, I've been told I'm no longer on the case. I've been told I cannot deal with this anymore. I mean, that has happened to me. It's happened to other people. There's a level at which the word comes down, we're not clearing the brush in Altadena. And I'm not saying that happened, but I'm saying I believe that happens. And I think the environmental stuff is also weaponized hand in hand with that. Like, the Rand Corporation talks about what they're going to do if the Belarus guy doesn't cooperate. And then they're going to start a protest, and then they're going to get Russia to have to invade Ukraine. Like, they know what they're doing.
Yep. It doesn't help either that you've got evil creatures like Newsom at the head,
oh my
saving
gosh,
little fish or what have you. That's a whole other realm, isn't it?
I know. And then like the way he came out, it's really, really tactless the way he came out with his like LA 2.0 plan. Like that.
He laughed. Yes, that was a little tactless.
Laughed, right? I mean, I thought I said that to somebody. It's like, I think he was like smiling and they're like, no, there's no chance. I'm like, I think I saw him like.
He was.
Yeah.
Unless it was a deep fake, of course, because you've got to take it with a grain of salt these days, don't you?
No, but it was so shocking. Like, people can't believe it. It's really shocking to us. And I mean, a level of destruction, it's really not comprehensible. Like, it's just they should have, I don't think somebody ran up there and started it, but they might as well have, with the risk, like the way off the trade-off of the level of risk. And those winds, I mean, it's just asking for, it was so predictable. Like, do you guys know anything about these Santa Ana winds? They're not, you must know, Jeff. They're
Just going to ask Jeff
nuts.
about that.
They
Yeah.
break windows. I have 4 cracked windows, and I'm confident it was from the winds and not the fire.
Yeah, they're certainly. I've got statistics if you guys want to see any slides on them or anything like that.
Yeah, I'm
setup,
interested
all
in
that.
that. Yeah.
Okay, let me go ahead and present on then. Let's see. Share screen. I found a great video on radio, a CBS Philadelphia station that this guy's explaining it, and it's like, this is all about pressure differential. You have high pressure inland in the deserts over Nevada, somewhere interior east of the Sierras, right? And then you have low pressure setting up down south near Arizona. And then what happens is the air rushes over the mountains and down the mountains, and as it descends, it warms, because compressing something makes it warm. So then you have the canyons. So it squeezes through and makes them stronger. And the winds with the jet stream that day were well over 100 miles per hour at that time as it got into that area. So you have these hot, dry conditions and high fire danger every time they come, and they come often. So the Los Angeles area, that's Soledad Canyon and Newell Pass, where the winds were funneling through, and even the Cajon Pass, which is over by San Bernardino. So you have this north to south jet stream that's really strong, that's assisting with that. And frequency, always winter. The worst months, you have almost 3 times a month from October to February on average over this, I think this is 1968 to 2000 study. So averages 20 events per year, and average duration is 1.5 days. You've had years like 88, 89, where there's been over 30 events, and as little as 5 or 7 back in 76, 77 time frame. So average duration is about 1.5 days, but they can range from 1 to 3 days. This one was a couple days, I think, before the winds died off. And basically, it's telling you that this is these guys are real picky about their statistics on how they ruled out days that were Santa Anas and days that they were not. So they were pretty good meteorologists, and you don't get the 100-mile-per-hour winds very often, except at the peaks. But there are times when it happens. Here's a place in 1961. I didn't do a real exhaustive study on this, but you can find them just with a quick search. In a couple minutes, you can find something that says they'll hit 100 mile per hour down where people live. So it's not impossible. Pasadena got a gust of 167 not confirmed in 2011, confirmed 97. So not that hard to find them, proof that you get really strong ones once in a while. And, weather changes constantly, and it's going to be different every year, just like our rainfall. And, like the rainfall, if I go to really quickly that, you can look at the rainfall chart here and see that, let's see, where did I put that? Right here. No, that's the reservoirs. The reservoirs are in really good shape. On average, it's 71.2 overall for the all of California, but there's very few reservoirs that are lower than they're supposed to be. And if I go to
that's interesting.
Water, okay,
Can you find out about the Palisades one? Was that true or false? Fact or fiction that thing was emptied for repairs?
Well, I saw pictures of it. Yeah,
I did too,
empty.
But I just didn't know how to evaluate the pictures. I just, there was just so much going past. Yeah. So, and that is not, okay. I don't think that's how you usually would repair a reservoir. I think even at football stadium, they build the new one before they tear down the old one. And I know the Sandhogs in New York, they build the new water pipes before they take the other ones offline.
Well, the thing is, you would do it off season. You would never have it. You would never have it empty at that time of year. And the other reservoirs that would have fed that, because the other reservoirs are in good shape, there's no reason that they didn't have that thing, the repairs completed. That's just negligence, incompetence. I don't know what you call it.
Right. And do you
Political
think
crap,
that
probably.
our water ran out because of what Stella was saying about the houses just losing, creating
That's
the
a
water
part of it.
pressure problem?
That's a part of it, definitely, because you add that heat, and your pipes are going to explode. If you didn't turn it off at the valve in the street underground,
But I
you
didn't see
don't have
any
a chance.
water. I didn't see any. I saw the gas fires, but I didn't see any water.
Let me see. Can you tell me where that reservoir would it be? Like that guy right there?
Take a note
That
of it.
empty reservoir. Let's see. There's Palisades right there. So they're not in the network of major reservoirs. Maybe
Ours is a
reservoir
small one. It's
storage.
Rubio Canyon is our water company. It's a small water company taking a lot of flack, but they had a backup. So
you were eating fire though, right? So that's
yes.
up by Pasadena. Well, they're not giving numbers on these anyway, so it's a moot point. They don't have numbers for all the reservoirs.
Yeah, okay. That's the thing. It's like, I mean, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of early reports and things that get bandied around. It's just hard to figure out what's real and what's not. I mean, some of the stuff that we see, as we all know, some of it can be, oh, yeah, here's a picture of blah, blah. It's like, it turns out, oh, no, that was actually from 2009 from something completely
Yeah,
unrelated,
that's why what I always think is like maybe
Yeah.
it's just not even from right now.
Don't take too much notice of the really early reports of things.
Well, for the most part, the reservoirs in this state are in good shape. That one was empty. I mean, I saw the videos of it.
Yeah.
You guys saw the
Okay. You
same
saw
thing?
the videos. Yeah.
I mean, and as far as precipitation, I mean, when you go and look for the month of January, there you go right there. South of Modesto, there was almost no rain this year.
Yeah. There was no
essentially.
rain. I remember no rain at all.
And look at this for the water year. You've got really good situation up north. You had the atmospheric rivers. The middle part of the state had moderate amounts in the 70 percentile of normal. But look at down south. That's the water year. That's October 1st onward. Essentially nothing. So not such a good year for the vegetation getting as dry as you can be because of the prolonged high pressure ridge that's been off the coast.
I have a question as an Australian who doesn't know anything about the area or the seasons there. You were saying that when they know it's the season is coming up, so these Santa Ana winds, they come up always around about this time, but it's winter over there right now, isn't it? So
that's when they come.
But we don't get snow or anything.
It's still pretty warm, right?
Yeah, it's 57 degrees at night. 67. Right now it's 67 degrees outside, or it was this afternoon. I'm not wearing a coat.
And it's clustered between November and January are the highest months, and that's about 3 times per month of a day or two duration. So it's not an uncommon thing. And the forecasters see it coming a week out. It's impossible to miss it. All it takes is bring a cold front through Nevada, then the high pressure builds behind it, and you just need a low pressure center to form down over Arizona, and then you have like a ringer on an old style washing machine. You know how the high is clockwise motion. So if I go back to that one slide again, that was the first slide I opened with, I think. It's easy to preview. No, that was it. It's got to go back up. Look at those two things right there. The winds are on the high are clockwise. Around a low, they're like that. And therefore, it's like feeding through between the two heading towards the west, which is the opposite of normal.
And
That's
another thing, that was weird that my husband was saying is that, this is what he said. He said, like, normally you would think of winds that go up, up a mountain, they go up. But these were coming down the mountain towards us. And that pushed the fire towards us.
Yes.
And maybe that's why we didn't really expect it. We could watch it. We watched it go away from us and then go up and around. And my neighbor who stayed the entire time, he said you could just watch the wind moving the fire. He said you could just see it go around a house and like come back. I mean, that's why there's like one house completely standing. It's like, it just was weird. Like the winds were really weird. But I think it's the canyon. See, they call it the Eaton Fire, but it's the Eaton Canyon Fire. It's a canyon.
Well, here's the setup showing the jet stream. You could see you got a bump on the west coast. So
I see. Cool.
Winds go like that, and then they come down like that. And then if
Yeah.
you looked at the surface winds, this is on the app called Ventusky. And
We've got to sort that one out.
Ventusky.
Ventusky, yeah.
So there you go, right there. It's showing Malibu Beach at 26 miles per hour at that 4 p.m. that day. But, all these winds started early in the morning, like 9 o'clock in most places.
So I think that's Malibu.
Yeah, Malibu
I'm
Beach
like
is the one I
30.
have.
I'm 30 miles in maybe, and up a little bit.
Altadena area.
Yeah, you can probably see that.
You're here. It was 40 plus over those peaks at 7 in the morning.
Yeah, and my husband's just going to London and back, and he said that the jet stream's amazing. Like, it's saved him a ton of time going over, and it's messing him up coming back. It's like the jet stream is crazy strong right now.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, it is. It is sort of extreme at the moment, isn't it? There's a few extreme things going on at the moment. Actually, there's the solar cycle thing. So we don't really know how much that comes into play, I guess.
Yeah. Could that be why it's so unusually strong right now?
Well, I mean, the jet varies in strength all times of the year, but it's worse in the winter because of the disparity between the cold and the warm at the equator. So that causes your winds. So, I mean, the solar thing can have an effect on it, but, nobody can tell you that definitively.
Need to.
That's the big question, isn't it? It's the $1 million question. What exactly is contributing? Or is it a whole bunch of things all put together and just a big climate soup of extremes?
Kinda. Yep. Here's an interesting thing that shows the setups over all the years, a 30 or 40-year study right here that shows your jet stream situation. So it's always a little bit different, but you always have this bump of ridge of high pressure along the west coast. And then you have to have that low pressure area down there. This gives the probabilities of it happening. That 4.9 and that 4.8 and the 4.8, 15 and 16 are the most popular setups. I think I probably just need the most frequent setups are right there. 15, 16, and I think the other was 30. So the jet stream follows the bump. I mean, it'll follow one of those colors, right? So it'll be, runs west to east, but you've got that bump of high pressure. It's the ridge, and it just goes along in a wave form along with that, parallel to those lines.
It's so hard to get my mind around how vulnerable we were to this when, I mean, it just never came down that low. And maybe more densely populated houses. I think a big part of it is that back in the day, I think people, and I've actually read this as a libertarian comparison, that back in the day, people would be pissed at you if you didn't stop and grab a bucket. And now they're pissed at you if you try to fight. And even the firemen were like, we need the people out of here. But the one said to me, said to us on the side, if you don't save that trees, get your chainsaws, figure something out, because all these houses will go down if those trees go up. So, I mean, I think maybe part of it is that, and I don't want to tell people not to evacuate, but I feel like the calling off the firefighters, which I think they probably did because of the winds, and also telling absolutely everybody to abandon ship, whether it's right or wrong, could be a difference maker from past years.
Yeah, I do wonder sometimes how much liability plays a part in that. It's sort of like, I mean, damned if they do, damned if they don't, basically.
Zero tolerance for loss of life, which I can understand.
For every situation at all. I mean, it's really, the authorities are, they might be authorities, but it's like, really, it's up to us. It's up to us what we decide to do. If we want to risk our lives and stay and fight, that should be up to us,
Yeah, and you are risking your life for sure. Like, I'm not
100%.
taking that lightly. Get your vulnerables out of there and take only your own life in your own hands. Like, don't risk anybody else's life, for sure not. But the policies that they make. So when they talk about highways, they put it's a life is worth whatever, $4 million. Like, set the speed limit at 65. Like, they know how many people are going to die. Tens of thousands of people. Same thing with drugs. Tens of thousands of people are going to die. There is a property value assigned to that. And in this case, like, the optics of the deaths is too, like, especially firefighters and stuff, it's too public. It's they suspend, just like with COVID, they suspend that calculus. In COVID, it was the other way. They were like, we'll tolerate millions and millions of deaths by these terrible policies. But I feel like
they rub their hands evilly together.
I mean, that's what that Newsom thing looked like to me.
Yeah. Oh, totally. That
video. And these people saying it's time. I had another video that said it's time. Let me find it. If you guys want to chat, I have a minute to. It will only take me
he's
second.
a WEFer, isn't he? A WEF fluffer,
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, you should see his
Josh Green in Lahaina. He's fully WEF.
Yeah, let me show you this thing that I.
This is the thing: is that people that are in charge. It doesn't have to be every single member of government or authority or whatever. It's as long as the decision makers are infiltrated in the cabinets. Can I? Bugs.
Yeah,
it's that's all that really matters. The decision makers are in place.
Hey, Stella, before you switch screens, do you still have mine?
Yes.
Look at this. This is.
I forgot that you can't see it. Sorry.
This is a really good view of what's out there right now for the clouds. So all those lines are your contrails. The conditions are perfect.
Oh, really? Okay.
Can you zoom in? Oh, those lines. Okay, so up the.
So I can show you.
Look at the LA area. It's like the skies are covered if you look up in the sky right now, Monica. Huh.
I am. Let me show you. I'll.
Yep.
There you go.
I'm leaving you.
So
to press the button.
this was just right. You're right. That's today.
Yep.
So that's today.
There's a lot of cirrus up there too. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and this makes you think. Then you get mudslides the next day, and you think they did it on purpose. But it did occur to me the only reason it's there is because the moisture's in the air now. But I wanted to share one other thing, if you don't mind, about why it makes people think that they do this stuff on purpose. Let's watch this.
Yeah.
Here's this guy telling us what to do.
But the most interesting element of my conversation with Mr. Giacoletti was when he talked about the possibility of, as we start rebuilding, starting to relax some of the zoning laws, especially in a more working class neighborhood like Altadena, so that rather than putting up single family residences, especially on parcels where people might not have the wherewithal to rebuild at all, we allow developers to start putting up duplexes and apartments. In other words, increasing density, but also increasing more housing.
See, that pisses me off because it's a working class. It's ethnically diverse and economically diverse. And the history of Altadena was that the Black families in the 70s, people, not families necessarily, but like artists and stuff, the 70s cops in LA apparently were nuts. There were race riots and whatever. So people just wanted to get out of that. Altadena was in the mountains. It was very cheap. It had a lot of little houses because it used to be the place where servants lived for the mountain homes, which was like the country home for the old LA, like a long time ago, 100 years ago, whatever, more than 100 years ago. So some of these people, a lot of people have 3 generations, like the majority of people you'll talk to have 3 generations of family. So like you'll talk, I was on the mail post line because nobody could get mail. We have to wait. And I was one of the only people who had a house still. And the one guy said, I lost 3 houses. I have other people say I lost 2, like my mother, my niece, whatever. And and I don't know if I think there was probably a little bit of an underinsurance problem, or like it's government insurance a lot of times, because I don't know what, they change policies and then the insurance companies leave. So maybe they are underinsured, but I think they're going in there and just trying to pay people off and take those properties away. But it's so predatory, in my opinion, because those people, that is a really nice, like, I didn't experience racial strife, like crime. Like, there were definitely pockets of homeless and the gross liquor store and everything like that. But I never had any problems with it. It was side by side. It was very cool. And he's plotting to eliminate that from existence. And we really don't need the dense housing up there. There were little houses next to each other and we got along.
Yeah, I read that article that you sent me about how, just the community and how the black people sort of basically went up there to escape, as you were saying, just escape the
really accurate. And they own their houses,
and everyone sort of felt quite comfortable with each other. There wasn't so racial sort of underpinnings there. It might be a good time to when they talk about the building restrictions being relaxed, you sort of think, oh, that's good, people won't have any problems, and it's like, oh, aren't they great? And it's like, no, because the developers are going to move in, you twat.
Exactly. They exploit libertarians. Yeah,
Sounds
exactly.
like a 15-minute city to me.
Does a little bit.
Me too.
That maybe it's worth. Can we play that insurance thing that I sent?
Sure.
Monica, from YouTube. It might be worth sort of listening. I can't verify this, but it sounded to me like it kind of made a lot of sense, because it might clear up a few myths.
Yeah.
Why did insurance companies pull out of California right before the wildfires? Well, in the 1980s, California passed a bunch of regulations on insurance companies. They included things like requiring the state to approve rate increases and prohibiting companies from passing certain costs on to customers. So after the 2018 wildfires, California went even further. They blocked insurance companies from canceling or not renewing policies for 1 year. Now, this might sound great in theory, but by 2023, two of the largest insurance companies, Farmers and State Farm, decided it just wasn't worth it to offer insurance at a rate that could lead to financial failure. So they would stop issuing new policies in California. To prevent this, Governor Gavin Newsom issued an executive order, which gave insurance companies a little more freedom, but it was too late. In 2024, they chose not to renew thousands of policies in the Palisades, Brentwood, and other areas at risk of wildfire. This forced homeowners into the state's expensive FAIR plan, which doesn't even have enough money to cover the losses, and means taxpayers could be on the hook. And because politicians haven't learned anything in the last 30-something years, they've issued another temporary ban on insurance companies declining to renew policies, which could cause even more businesses to leave the state for good. So how do we make sure that this doesn't happen again? Why did insurance companies pull out of California?
Yeah, so it's almost like, Newsom can come along and say, well, I tried. I gave a little bit more, wiggle room, but it's like, you probably didn't fight it real well, though.
I wouldn't be surprised if the insurance companies are prohibited from doing any kind of like primary work to hedge their bets, like clear brush and stuff. Like I wouldn't be surprised if they're hamstrung on both sides of that equation. And I mean, we have good insurance, but that's why you can't sell a house that can't be insured. And for the moment, you can't sell a house on the moon, which is what it looks like. So we're just mentally preparing for basically self-insuring, which means staying and fighting, put money away. So we're going to cover the eaves with tile. We might build a wall and replace the fence with a stucco wall, and definitely put a pump in the pool and put the hose outside. And our neighbors know how to, we'll just learn how to use the stuff, and we're fucking just do it.
Yeah, I don't think that's actually such a bad thing, because really, I mean, we, as a society, we have been, pushed and prodded and molded into relying on the authorities because that's the way they want it. But really, I think that's a bad mindset to be in. That should always be the backup, not the initial primary reliance. It should be smart decisions made, thought put into modifications, mindfulness of these kind of basic fundamental situations of living in a society, which is not natural. It's not natural to live in a suburb with lots of houses in rows. I mean, we all wandered around and picked berries at one point. So all these unnatural ways of life and as I said before, the constant urban sprawling, changing the landscape, of course there is going to be consequences. And, how dare we just shake our fist at God or at, even at the authorities.
And
saying, "Oh, it's not your
thinking,
fault." It's like, well,
yeah,
how much could
thinking.
have this been avoided?
If
Yeah.
people could have experience with the physical world and can think about it in that way. That's why I knew the guy next door. Like, he's a mechanic. Like, he's an engineer. He was like, well, what are my, what is the system here? Like, I can escape this way, that way, that way, and that way. Like, I have many, like, I am not in actual imminent danger right now. And I'm able
structure
bodied.
of thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and he knows, and my son and I looked at each other and like, yeah, he was totally. As soon as he said that, we're like, oh yeah, he was fine, and we were fine. But
Natural.
But you have to have sense, and you have to practice that. I think you have to practice. And you have to think about it that way. So now I walk around. What we learned in that one day. Wow, what an experience! And it was it was almost like it was so exhilarating. Plus, it was so smoky. We couldn't see that anything that wasn't on fire had already burned to the ground. We thought there were a few houses on fire. I don't know why I wasn't thinking it, because I remember seeing on TV all the big, but so we were laughing at it. So like when we put the fire, we were like happy, and then it was after that we saw everything was like totally to the ground. But in that day, we learned so much. I mean, by the end of the day, you could look at something and say, like, that's a risk. Like, somebody go check that, cut this down, move it, like, put whatever, put that in the like the rubbish thing with the lid on it. Like, there were Christmas trees around, old Christmas trees, like, gotta get rid of that. So it was very empowering in that you realize that you can actually think these things through, maybe not in a panic, but now that we've had the experience, we can, and I was wondering, I may start interviewing people who like can tell you, like firemen or whatever, like who can tell you honestly how to prepare and how to deal with the situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's not until you go through something like this that you realize that we live on a very thin line between life and death. Things can turn around in a dime in a matter of microseconds. So, yeah, I mean, that'd be great if you can start, interviewing some of those people, because there are some precautions that, people can take, like have an evacuation plan, have 2 or 3 in place so that if this, then that, etc.
A lot of little things, yeah.
Yep, have your valuables and all those important things all in one place, in sort of the same vicinity at least.
You have to find it in the dark. It can't be nothing in a garage where it could, if the electricity goes out. But I was what they call condition white. Like, I was just unaware and unafraid. I was condition white, and I just wasn't prepared at all. And the other people I want to interview is like, I have to now go through this process as a libertarian of saying, if you want to maintain the community here, this is not the time to abandon all of the rules that shaped this community for 150 years. I'm all for no zoning, but if you have no zoning, then you have to have no tax deductions for mortgages. You have to have no, they're subsidizing tearing everything all apart. Insurance companies should demolish your house and help you rebuild it, but the government's coming in and saying, we're demolishing everything free right now in 5 minutes. So they're wiping everything instantaneously all at once. I mean, they're setting the stage for guys who can pay for lobbyists to come in and do things that they've been setting the groundwork for the longest time to have, quote, affordable housing in, quote, middle-class neighborhoods. They'll put it in there. They'll pay people to go in there. They'll stop the funding. Then you're going to have slums in what was a nice middle-class and lower middle and upper middle-class neighborhoods. So I just want to go in there and know how to deal with this, like Rosa Quarry stuff, the Delphi technique. I want to be effective, and I just don't even know how to start.
Yeah, that's it. And they're not exactly teaching you this useful stuff in school, are they? I mean, they're teaching you trigonometry when they should be teaching you how to deal with, emergencies, how to raise a child, all that kind of thing. It's all by design, isn't it?
Yeah.
Dumbing us down, make us, sucking on Big Brother's nipple, basically, the chest feeder of, it's just insane to be that reliant on something that's outside yourself.
Jeff, was there any local political, after your fire, did you observe or participate in any local political action for, in reaction to that or in preparation for rebuilding? Can you give any advice about that? or even where I can turn to get some education on how to approach this?
That did not happen here because it was just my house that burned. Nothing else burned.
But it was from the outside in. It was an outside. It was a fire from the outside, or like was there an electrical short? Like what was the fire?
We had some chickens that we left on our deck. We had them inside of a metal container with mesh on the top and a heat lamp. It was hardware cloth. Something came up on the deck and turned it over, and it started the deck. And then there was a French door right on the deck going into the house. The couch was up against it. We didn't use that door. The heat went right through the heat, right to that couch, and started the house on fire.
Wow, that must have been devastating.
It wasn't so good, yeah, especially since our dog was here.
Don't tell me that.
Yeah, and we were out of state for a family reunion. We couldn't come back for a week. We didn't even know where our dog was. So,
wow.
And answer to your question, no, we didn't have anything like that because we haven't had that around here.
Right. It was super localized to your property. Yeah, that's terrible. I'm sorry. Yeah. That was the thing. For the first day, you're like so happy that everybody's okay.
Yeah.
And then the other stuff starts taking its place in your priorities, which is funny how we just can square stuff away. I like what Dostoevsky said, like man is a creature who can get used to anything.
Compartmentalize things until you're ready to sort of deal with things, I guess. Yeah.
And then, but also like we have to deal, like that's what happened. I had a day, like a depressed day. And the worst part was just so many people I know were super devastated. And it totally, we've been in that house for a year and a half, and we had there were 5 kids my son's age who had Down syndrome, including my son. We were carpooling, everything was good, and all 4 of the other ones lost their houses. So my heart bleeds for them. And then, on a much smaller level, it's like, wow, like the community that we were developing is gone. And now I want to help get it back, but I don't even know how to begin.
Yeah, that's always the tough one, isn't it? Where do you start?
No idea. It's not my wheelhouse at all. I'm terrible at politics. I can analyze politics. I can see motives, but to like sit in a room with a bunch of lying assholes and me not be like, hey, that guy's a lying asshole. Like, no way. Like everybody, it's just, that's not going to work. It might work.
Wearing your I'm not a lying asshole t-shirt.
I should actually get that. That would be a good idea.
So how are you guys all now, like physically and everything? Are you sort of feeling any fallout from all the, the toxins and everything you breathed in? And
I'm totally resilient from like day to day. I don't get super sick. I can absolutely tell that my body is like trying to expel particulates. I smoked cigarettes for a long time. I know what this feels like. Yeah. And I just, my hope is that there aren't trillions of invisible molecules in there trying to figure out how to kill me in 10 years. Like I'm hoping that's the thing. I don't like that. I like to smell my meat. If it smells good, I'm eating it. Like I want to go in my house. If it smells good, I want to live in it, but it does not smell good. So it smells very, very bad. And
I've been wondering about that. Like how long do you think it'll be before you'll be able to?
Well, tomorrow they're coming in. Remediators are coming in tomorrow to take pictures. We have great insurance. Our insurance is fantastic. I am confident it will go away forever, but for right now, it's fantastic. And I've been doing some research on how to, because I just moved into this house, and it's the first time in my whole life, like, I like it. I'm like, I like the drapes. I just put the drapes in. I like the color of the walls. You know what I mean? My whole life, I've been like, it's a shithole. I don't care. This is nice. So they're going to have to scrub the walls, and they're going to paint them the same freaking color they are now. And they're, either throw away the furniture, which I just bought, or like deep clean it if they can. And the rugs.
Pretty hard to get the smell out of that. Yeah.
It's not just the smell, it's the actual toxins that apparently, especially carpets, like they've associated, I just knew this anyway, associated carpeting with like ovarian cancer and stuff. When you walk on carpets, it traps everything. It traps everything from the air too. So when you walk on it, it poofs up your skirt all the time. So the carpet, I have like some nice old carpets I may have to say goodbye to, but it's a pretty thorough remediation process. And my guess is they're going to tell you, they're going to give you a check. And they're going to say, if I were you, I would throw away everything that was on the surface. And again, my house was as messy as it's ever been. So it's like, like all of my clothes and baskets. They're telling you things like that, like get everything dry cleaned. And I'm like,
everything.
I don't watch it. Like if it smells good, I just don't. I want somebody to tell me if it smells good, it's fine.
Well, I'll tell you. If it smells good, it's fine. I mean, that's just the way it is. Give it a wash.
Right? I think so. Yeah. It's not in there. If the smoke isn't in there, then the boron isn't in there. Sorry, Jeff. What were you saying?
I have two solutions too. Ozone generators take odors out of things.
Yeah.
So you just buy a little electric ozone generator so you could just do one room at a time.
Oh, ozone. Yes, because the ionizer has a problem. I'll tell you in a second. Gad, what's your second thing?
Second thing is chlorine dioxide. You buy the
CDS.
tablets. Yeah, ClO2. And that was Safrax was the company that sells that, Safrex. And I was just reading the thing the other day to how to deodorize a car or something like that. You just pop X amount of tablets in there, let it sit, and then air it out before you go back into it. So, it's not good to breathe, but it gets rid of bad odors.
Okay, because one thing that I know did work when I used to smoke was an ionizer. But apparently, my husband did some research. He said it's great. The ionized particles, whatever, get in the air, they grab on all that stuff, and then they fall to the ground. So then you have that carpet problem again. Then you have to clean the carpet after that. But it can pull a lot of the stuff out of the actual air. But opening the windows pulled it all out of the air. But if you close the windows, it fills up again. So I feel like it's in the stuff. It's in the stuff, and it's not. I have to get rid of it, and I'm not gonna probably do it myself, which is fine. I'm happy, but I'd be happy to do it myself, but I don't really know what I'm doing. My husband's getting pissed at that. I'm like, I'm hacking up along. He's just like, "What the fuck's your problem?" I'm like, oh, sorry.
It's a little bit hard to differentiate as well as to what's coming through the windows from outside versus what's actually.
It smells a little bit outside, but as you get out of town, I see people where I am now wearing masks on the street. And I'm like saying, this is good air. Like, smell it. You are an idiot. Like, you're not wearing inside your apartment is definitely worse air than what's happening right here. Like, this is good.
The security mask. It really got in, didn't it?
But it can't be good for you to breathe your own waste. But if you're drinking pee, you might as well breathe your own CO2. And there you go. Full circle.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. But I think possibly that, there was a bit of a flaw with the whole fireworks thing. I mean, I've always been, since I saw drones and what they can do as far as like festivity type displays go, Japanese are really, really good at it because I'm a little bit sensitive to the fireworks thing because coming from Sydney in Australia, like our big fireworks, our huge fireworks display in Sydney is always in Botany Bay, well, in the Sydney Harbour, and which also has Taronga Zoo. And my heart always goes out to the animals because it's like every year they must freak the hell out. It's like, what the is going on, Big booms, lots of pollution. And they even, they went ahead with it in December 2019, New Year's Eve, 2020. Even during, the fires were going, there was smoke everywhere and everyone's going, you're not going to do the fireworks surely. And it's like, well, it's a bit late now, it's all set up, and because it does create a lot of pollution as well. And as much as I'm not in the whole green agenda thing, but to a point I was always an environmentalist, within reason, just logical sort of things, like don't pollute the atmosphere.
Yeah, pollution. That's the thing. Climate change is a distraction from pollution. You know what I mean? Yeah. Pollution is the problem. The carbon dioxide is not a pollutant.
Oh,
it's the
ridiculous.
Yeah, it's the smoke and stuff that is. But I thought I wrote down a few agenda items since you mentioned drones that I observed as I was watching the coverage of this. One is they clearly this plus the New Jersey thing. I think they really want to lock down domestic or civilian drones, like people's drones.
Yeah.
They want free reign over the dronage themselves, but they want to take that down. They want to, I mean, that really practice their lockdown, their lockdown practices between, how they rolled in the sheriff, how they rolled in the National Guard, how they did the checkpoints, how they did it without getting people to resist, what excuses they used, how it worked. There's a lot of data, I think, coming out of that, a lot of practice there. They're still there.
It's almost like they're drills, isn't it? Same with North Carolina. It was
still
almost
up
like,
there,
let's just see how we go if we don't really do much. Let's see how that happens. And then here is like a different kind of agenda that they're drilling and
So in North Carolina, there was a lot of flack because of how poorly it was handled. Here, I'm like cynical. I'm skeptical to the point of cynicism sometimes, and I can't do. And even my husband said, like, if you go around telling people about this, you got to say what an amazing job, like all the utilities and everything did, which is true. I mean, it's unbelievable. I couldn't believe it because I kept going that my electricity wasn't off, and Chad, the neighbor, comes by and he says, your electricity should work. I'm looking at these wires. Your electricity should work. I said, well, it's not working. And he said, let's see, let's just look at stuff. So he opened all the fuse boxes, and someone had come through and thrown not only the big, like, house one, like there are big, the whole box, you throw, they threw that, and they threw every single solitary small one. So when when we threw the big ones, it looked like the thing. So all of a sudden, so I don't even know how quickly it came up. So all of that, the water is really, really amazing. But those are all private companies, by the way. I think, digital IDs. So my son doesn't operate well under stressful conditions. He likes his room. So I sent him, I got Down syndrome. I sent him to my sister's house in Massachusetts. She came to pick him up. God bless her. And she took him, and we didn't have his papers. So we had taken our box of valuables, which we did rescue, but we put them in a friend's storage unit. So at the airport, he didn't have his passport or any ID at all. Yeah. And I had photos of it all. So I just sent her the photos, and someone pointed out, like, this is an opportunity to demonstrate the value of a digital ID.
Yes.
So
yes, it is.
New building codes, obviously 15-minute cities, the kind of buildings that don't have niches, that don't have balconies, that don't have landscaping, which is great for surveillance, but you can easily use fire prevention as a reason for that. They don't like home ownership. They've been using insurance for a long time to discourage home ownership and auto ownership.
Yes.
I bet home ownership I bet it's half what it was before in Altadena after this. And then FEMA, more money. And I am now my experience says that this agenda isn't panning out, although it's not over, but that Altadena, which is a small town, it could incorporate with Pasadena or have some other city-wide or county-wide push to bring the gas, the water, the electric, everything. Well, I guess gas is a big company, and electric, but the water company, to incorporate it. And I was just getting like a pool and everything. I got all that stuff permitted, and the water company was amazing. Like they figured it all out. They came out, they put in the pipes I needed. They helped me with the permitting. They were so ass kissing that, and it was very expensive, but they are a private company. And I knew immediately, I was like, why are you guys so nice? And I was like, I don't know. And as I walked out, I said, oh, because the other people at the city, I said, the other people at the city are not. It's like, oh, we're private. We don't work with the city. I was like, oh, well, that explains
that.
Yeah, so they'll probably, there'll be a push, I'm sure, to absorb that up, that kind of thing. But it's really a shame. And I remember saying in Altadena, I was like, what are they going to do to screw up this town? And I figured, well, they'll probably put a billboard in Shanghai that says, move to Altadena, take your suitcase full of cash and buy a house in Altadena. And because it was actually, because it's a kind of off the beaten path, it has not a lot of immigration up there, which is unusual for California. So that's why, you had people, all different races and economy, but they were there for like 70 years sometimes, and they just had the rhythm of the town, and it was nice.
Yeah,
It
right.
was nice.
Okay.
And then, one, just the last thing I'll say is that the one thing is that they have these little old, like there's a burger joint, there was this, there was that, the pizza place. And I was gearing up, really excited to have my son, who's now 22, he's Down syndrome, he's, my forever baby, whatever. I was getting my mind around, like, I can teach him how to get to the burger place and get himself a burger. Like, he's going to be able to do that. They are going to know, they start to know him already. We'll go to the same place every Friday. And that's just, it's going to be a fucking Starbucks. It's not going to work. But whatever, that's the little problems. I can handle that. But I feel bad for the people who lost everything.
Yeah, I just can't even imagine, there being enough places for all those people to go and have safe harbor at the moment. I don't know how they're managing all that. I can't even.
They're moving far afield, which really sucks because that is like the worst thing, because they'll be out there, they'll see how cheap it is, and they'll never come back, which I 100% expect. I'm trying to see if I have just in closing, this lovely picture of my house.
Because after the floods here in the Lismore area, Northern Rivers, New South Wales, there was like temporary housing areas put up, and of course everyone was like, not in my backyard. But like now it's well, as I said, we're almost 3 years to the day. Not long ago it was like, okay, well, everybody, you're going to have to find somewhere else to go now because the dudes want their football field back. It's like, oh, okay, football's so much more important. Thousands of people, or hundreds of people's, futures, security, lives. Where are these people going to go? They have nothing.
There's that's why I want to get involved. I wish I were a little better at that, but maybe I'll get better at it. Maybe it's like fighting fires.
One way to get better at it.
Just have to do it a couple of times. So here's my cute little house. You can see those trees going up, like were the ones that went up. And even after the firemen left, we got an extension ladder and we put it up against a tree. And we just had a bucket brigade, and my son was literally throwing water over his head, which should not have worked. It was a miracle. It should not. It was hard to get the embers out. When the tree went up, even if it was within your reach, it was hard to get the fires out. How he could just push it over. It was a miracle.
They call
but
it
you can
adrenaline.
see the smoke. Yeah, and he's young. But the smoke, see, it's a blue sky day, and see, the smoke is still there. So that's how you can tell it's an after picture. People think it's a before picture. Mm-hmm. And now folks want me to cut down those trees, but I'm like, look, man, we live on the moon. You want to cut down the last trees on the moon? Maybe, but let's give it a day.
Yeah, wow.
I just saw a count. I go to this site called ubinet.com. It's the one place I use for tracking fires. Structures destroyed, eaten, 9,418. Palisades, 6,809. 15,000 homes between them, 16,000.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a lot of employed builders, that's for sure. And, there might be an influx of people coming in to trade people. I mean, that was a problem that we had too after that, was just getting enough tradies. I mean, it would have been a trade.
Oh, yeah.
And get plenty of work. But even just having little tiny jobs done around the place, we had to wait months, and it's fair enough. You know, we're not important. We weren't affected, but it was just a problem,
Yeah, and those are the 9,000 structures. The red is the 9,000. So you can see what a percentage of the total kind of community. I mean, I think it goes down around this line down here. Altadena is not big, so that's probably all of it. It's probably, I would, there's some totally unaffected here. So let's say 75% of it is gone.
So the color codes there, you said that the black were okay. Did
black
you?
are
were totally gone.
Red is totally gone. Black is totally fine. Green is like almost no damage, and yellow is, I think green is under 10%. Yellow is 10 to 25%, and we have yellow because our house did catch on fire, and but the one thing they're doing, which is exactly what I want them to do, is they're hiring more inspectors so that it doesn't take so long to fix the stuff.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Oh.
Anyway.
I just looked at the weather forecast. You're getting an inch to an inch and a half of rain this weekend.
What do you think about that? I mean, I don't like it because I feel like it's going to soak those toxins in. Some people are worried about mudslides. What do you think?
I don't think that's enough for mudslides. Your ground is totally, I mean, it's going to suck everything up. You haven't had
Yeah.
rain. It's
Yeah.
not going to be any runoff.
What about the toxins? Would you worry about that? That it pushes it deeper into the soil?
A lot of them have blown out already. I mean, they've moved with the winds. They went offshore first. As those fires were burning, that stuff was going out to the ocean.
Of course. Yes, and I will tell you that if you look at the mountains, you would think they would be black, but just like my patio, there's no ash at all. There's nothing charred. It's gone. So the fires were very hot. I kept saying it's up in smoke. It's up in smoke. It's gone. And a lot of it is gone. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. That's what I showed you the earlier picture. I kept saying it was a blue sky day. Like that was just absolutely thick smoke.
Yeah. And of course it's heading, where would that be heading? East, Jeff?
Well, what
or-
I was showing,
or
it
west?
was going west. It was coming southwest. Yeah, it was coming
Southwest.
down the mountain past,
Yes.
because we were southwest of that fire. And it was fucking crazy. It was crazy.
It
It's too
sounds
bad
insane.
that there wasn't, I'm sorry.
No, you're right, Jeff. Go.
It's too bad that it didn't rain right after that event, because then it would have just washed it into the ocean. But then the sea breeze came back after, and you got your regular southwesterly winds right now. So some of it's coming back, but it's not at least concentrated.
Yeah, it smells fine. Not perfect, but it smells much better. But I just was worried that stuff. But you're right, it didn't settle because it was blown away
Quickly.
Oh my gosh, what a
30,
weird
40
experience.
mile per hour. The whole area was 30 mile per hour winds. How far to the coast?
Felt like 100. I think we're within 30 miles we're TMZ, the 30 mile zone.
It took an hour to get to the coast and then go out to the islands. And, Catalina and all that really got a bad. I'm sure out there it was really bad.
Yeah, rings a bell.
Yeah, the winds are so unsettling. I mean, their wind power is very unsettling just at the best of times. But
It was
I
scary.
remember
The
that
winds
from
were
the-
scary. Yeah.
I remember that from the 2020 fires here. It was like I've actually got some footage of a cockatoo hanging on for dear life on a branch as he's been blown away with the orange sky in the background. It's like it's a pretty amazing piece of footage, actually. But yeah, I mean, it's scary as hell. But it's sort of like it only takes that one ember and poof, off you go. So anyway, we're very thankful that you're here, and we really, really wish you the very, very best for the future. Everybody, your family, everybody,
Yes,
all the
we're
ripple
good.
effects that have
Yeah.
happened.
We're
I'm sure
good.
that whatever you choose to do in the future, Monica, that, whatever, God lays on your heart or wherever you're led, you're going to do an amazing job and you're going to be extremely valuable.
Well,
You
my
already
son
are, but,
said, like, you have to start going to those town hall meetings. You have to get involved. And I said, I don't know. He said, ask yourself, what do I have to give? That's what my mother said.
Yeah.
And I
agree.
said,
Yeah.
what do I have to give? He said, and he actually nailed it. He said, time. He said, you have time.
Yes,
So
the
give
most
your
valuable commodity
time.
we have. Exactly.
Yeah.
This is all going to take a lot of time and a lot of discussion to sort out, and hopefully we'll be able to have some effect instead of being brushed aside for the other plan, if that's what's happening. But, if that is what's happening, there's not a heck of a lot that can be done. But
Yeah, we can try. I'll just try.
Right. Take a bit of a page out of Trump's wonderful book there. I'm only kidding.
Well, he's in my town right now. People are like, oh,
Yeah.
Trump is coming. It's like, I got to get out of here. And they're like, what, you hate Trump? I said, I hate traffic. I want traffic.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like Gaza up there, Ukraine. Like people saw the original pictures and they were like, it was like a bomb hit it.
I think really the amount of decisions that I was going to say prime minister, a president can actually make is sort of, are probably more limited than people
course.
realize. I mean,
Ridiculous.
it's a nice photo opportunity, and, caring Trump, he's back to save everyone, but whatever.
Yeah. I knew he'd come to the poor part. Like Palisades is the fancy people. It's like, he's definitely coming to Altadena.
Yeah, right. Well, I believe Bel Air's a bit under threat at the moment, but
Of Trump or of fires?
fires.
Really? Bel Air right now?
That is something I read. I mean, I can't.
Yeah, I know.
hear
People
that.
were saying that, and I was like, you know what? I can't worry about your fire. I have to worry about my fire. But I didn't know it was Bel Air. That's that's right. That surprises me.
Oh, I'm sure they'll be fine. They've all moved to Texas. It's,
Oh, yeah. I don't know about that crowd. But Carturo has been an absolute champ. You want to say hi? So, remember, I got this schizo dog right before.
yeah, how's he going?
He's doing great, right, buddy?
Oh, he loves
Yeah,
you.
he's doing great. And but we're in this freaking box. I've got to walk him like 3 times a day. I have to figure out like doggy rush hour because he's psycho on the dog. So we have to wait. And I'm looking out around the corner. I'm like, you wait here. I'll see if the coast is clear. And then it's just crazy. It's like getting to me.
yeah. Just another little stress on top of everything else.
Yeah, but he's great to have around. I'd rather have him than not.
Yeah, for sure.
He's a good guy.
And your bunnies all okay?
Oh, those fucking things. Yeah, they're fine. They really cost, and we actually adopted the neighbor's guinea pig for a while. He used to live outside, and I think you just got to give this guy a break. Come live with the bunny. So now it's instead of we're having fewer of these little critters, we're getting more. But the guinea pig will go back home eventually. It's fun.
Yeah,
I like that. I like the critters.
A companion guinea pig, when you're feeling a little bit stressed out, just go and spend some time with the pig.
Yes. Yeah, it's been fun. I started feeding the chickens next door because I go up there for the bunnies, and I'm really learning a lot about, I don't know, I had to catch a chicken.
Finally learning how to grow a chicken. Awesome.
Yes, I'm growing a chicken, and yeah, it's fun. But I caught the chicken. My husband let the chicken out, and I caught it. Apparently, you can grab it around the neck.
That's one way.
I knew you had to do it around the feet, but I could only get a hold of its neck for the first 5 seconds. But I did get the feet, and it was fine. So it's been that part has been fun.
Did you look like Rocky chasing it?
No, we cornered it, so it was more like close enough.
All right. Well, really appreciate you being able to come and share all that with us.
Thank you. I feel like I showed you my vacation slides. I feel bad that I spent this entire time talking about my personal experience.
Well, it's like a vacation to hell and back.
Yes, hell.
Yeah.
My hell.
Like that,
That was a window to hell you just shared with us right there.
Yeah, it really was. It was really, really an experience that you just didn't expect. I always wonder, what are things I never even thought of? What's out there I never even thought of? And that was definitely one of them.
As they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So I guess it's just uphill from here. All right.
Yes.
Well, we wish you the best and take care, everybody. God bless everybody, and be vigilant, but look out for each other as well. All right. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.